Welcome to the Dirty Water News Fantasy Football Show with Nick Lesagor and Steve Pico. Not funny.
I was like, there's no way our intro's 6 seconds.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Dirty Water News Fantasy Football Show. It is Friday, August 15th. We are live, if you can't tell, at the Greatest Bar in Boston. And feel free to come out and join us on the 4th floor and join the Fantasy Football Show for... Okay. Welcome to my co-host, Nicholas Agor.
Hey!
Yeah, it's great to have you join
How are
me.
ya?
Thank you so much. That was really fun.
We'll come help you out.
Good, thanks. You can follow at Nick Lesagor. He's very exciting.
That's right.
On Twitter and at Uncle Stav.
Uncle Stav in the house. What's going on,
How
bud?
is it going?
Hey, Nick. Hey, Caitlin, how are you?
Oh, wonderful.
That was
you-
awesome.
That was
Are
a
you
lot
thinking
of fun.
about, not to cut you off, are you thinking about changing the name to at Uncle Stash? You gonna-
It could be a sound substitute.
I was just thinking about that. I feel like that's a great Twitter name.
My stash is out of control right
It is
now, and it's
out
phenomenal.
of control.
Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, so episode 15, quarterback comparisons.
Very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was interesting to me. I got a text message from a friend of the show that I did last year. His name was Greg Berman, a comedian, and helped coach him through his draft yesterday. And the team he ended up with was pretty fascinating. It was after the 5th round that he called me, and just running back and forth. It was a live draft situation, so he had the 8th pick in a 10-team standard league. And I just want to get you guys' quick hits on this before we really get into things here, on what you thought about his team. Jimmy Graham, DeMarco Murray, Antonio Brown, Reggie Bush, Andre Johnson, Wes Welker went wide receiver in those 2 rounds. I thought that was intriguing. Didn't tell him to do that, but it was after that things started getting interesting. Shane Vereen, Joik Bell, RG3. In the 10th round, he took the Patriots D, which everybody in his draft room
I wonder whose
laughed
pick
at him
that
for.
was.
What'd you say?
That was your pick, 100%.
Oh, for sure. No doubt about it.
Ill-advised.
He's like, are you sure? And I'm like, Revis and Browner, I'm sure. Patriots defense in the 10th, 11th, Terrence Williams, 12, Darren McFadden, and then in the 13th, Steve, Jordan Reed, which
Wow.
I thought was more intriguing for where he was drafted than the fact that he took him, because their flex spot includes a tight end. So I thought that was intriguing. Tony Romo in the 14th to back up RG3, who's obviously injury prone. 15th, Josh Gordon.
Nice.
And then 16th, he took a kicker. So I told him to go Josh Gordon in the 15th. I wanted to know what your thoughts were, just in terms of just taking a chance. I mean, you don't know. And I just feel like the process with Josh Gordon, we're going to touch on Cleveland in a little bit, but the process with Josh Gordon is just taking so long that the likelihood increases more and more that he ends up not getting suspended that long.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing the early drafts now, you kind of have to take a flyer on him. That's a 10-team league.
Right.
Every team in a 10-team league is going to be stacked.
For sure.
From 1 to pick 16, you're picking legit guys. So taking Gordon in the 15th is right where I would take him in a 10-team draft. But you reading it off, his first 4 guys to me, just except for Jimmy Graham, kind of felt like leaps. You're taking Bush in the 4th round, you said, and
Right.
Antonio Brown in the 3rd.
Yeah, I like Antonio Brown in the 3rd. He's a solid wide receiver 1. What I didn't like in terms of this team specifically was Andre Johnson and Wes Welker back-to-back.
I hear you with those guys.
In the 5th, I think you could have went, if he was available, Rashad Jennings, and you could have shored up that running back spot a little bit more. But I think that in terms of the running backs he got with Shane Vereen and Joik Bell, I think Vereen's going to be super solid, like I've said. And in terms of the flex spot, to me, I'm starting Jordan Reed most weeks. I mean, the guy's going to be an absolute animal. He's got RG3 as his quarterback, and, that offense should be one of the top 5 to 7 offenses in the NFL next year, especially in fantasy leagues. So Jordan Reed, you've heard nothing but good things in camp from him, and I think that it's going to be one of those situations where you find yourself starting Jordan Reed in that flex spot. If you're Greg, you find yourself starting Reed a little bit more often than you would maybe a Shane Vereen or a Joik Bell.
Reed could actually bring back value. He plays well. He can go into your tight end role, and then you could try trading Jimmy Graham. You can probably get a lot in return for Jimmy Graham, a number 1 running back. I like the Reggie Bush, Joique Bell combo he had there. I love Joique Bell this year.
I think the idea that Jordan Reed could get Jimmy Graham-like numbers is a little bit of a leap, but something similar to
He could be
them.
a serviceable tight end, a top 5 tight end maybe,
Right.
and then you could trade Graham for, his kind of value at another position.
I mean, you could trade Reed. You could trade Reed if he ends
You probably
up
get
having a
more
good year.
back, I'm saying, for Jimmy Graham in a trade.
But I mean, considering the depth that he has at running back, I think that I'd be more willing to keep a stud like Jimmy Graham, and instead of getting a stud running back in return, I think that the depth he has at the running back position with Joique Bell going back to back with Vereen and Bell, I think that I'm happy with that. If I'm Greg Berman, I just think that trading Jordan Reed, if he ends up doing what we all think he will, and getting like maybe a second tier running back in return, I think you're more balanced that way, as opposed to having that tight end spot just empty with Jordan Reed in there.
Take that, Greg.
Boom.
Clearly couldn't have done it without you. Good job. All right, let's move on. Quarterback camp controversies. So taking a look around the league, obviously we do have some camp battles going on. Even as we're halfway into August, there are still some teams who don't quite have their quarterbacks set. So let's take a look at the Jets, who kind of haven't gotten it right with the quarterback situation in the past couple of years.
That's a great way to say
it. And they've taken another big name, potentially backup quarterback. So what do you guys think in terms of Geno Smith and Michael Vick? Obviously sounds like ownership is backing Geno, but what do you think of seeing Michael Vick at some point during the season?
Well, I think just a quick hit on what you said, in terms of quarterback battles and halfway through or midway through August, pretty much we don't know who is going to be the starter on these teams. When we go through these listed teams, it's pretty par for the course, I think, in terms of it seems as though every year it's these teams for the past couple of years that have the quarterback controversy. So in terms of the Jets, I think that it's doubtful to me that we see Vic at any point this year. I just think that they're going to ride out Geno, at least for this year, to see what they have in the guy. In terms of Vic, I think you see him if Geno gets hurt. I'll say this, for fantasy, it makes more sense for Vic to be in there than Geno. For guys like Eric Decker and Jay Samaro, who's the tight end, hopefully going to be the starting tight end there in New York. I just think it makes more sense for a guy like Vic to be in there as opposed to Geno Smith. So in terms of fantasy relevance, I think Vic is the guy, but the Jets are going to go with Geno Smith. They believe in him.
Yeah, I mean, all signs kind of show that Geno Smith is going to be the one getting the snaps in New York. Rex Ryan, likes him so far, what he's done with camp. I'm very low on Geno Smith, and friends of the podcast who have heard me talk about Geno Smith will understand that. But I think I'm a little down on him maybe this year than I should. He finished with 9 games last year of 12-plus fantasy points, which was very surprising to me when I was looking it up. And
that's not that good, though.
I mean, it's not
that's
good,
not
but
good for quarterbacks.
I thought it was going to be a lot worse.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to be,
year.
maybe that high. And he actually finished the season at a pretty decent rate. He finished with last 4 games, 21 points, 13, 27, and 18. And that was against Oakland, Carolina, Cleveland, and Miami. A couple decent defenses in there. So it was signs that he was going up. So to me, fantasy, I'm going to go Geno Smith over Michael Vick, just off the signs that he did well last year towards the end, and I like the offense better going into this year.
When you talk about these two guys, I think that Vic, if he were to get starts, obviously better for Decker, like I said, but I think that Vic is in 2 quarterback leagues, and I think we're going to go through that a lot here with these guys, because these guys that we're going to go through in these teams' offenses, I don't see them being fantasy relevant to anything more than maybe a 14-team league, if that. I mean, 16-team league, I think is probably where I'm starting the relevance in terms of these quarterbacks. But even then, like I said, it's a stretch. So in 2 quarterback leagues, I like Vic as a quarterback too if he gets the starts. But I'm not sold on Geno Smith yet, even in a 10-team 2 quarterback league. I think that there's other quarterbacks out there that you can get that in the second slot. You can, where everybody in those drafts are taking quarterbacks so quick because that spot has 2 positions instead of 1. I think that you can wait and maybe take a Ryan Fitzpatrick later on in the draft over Geno Smith and stock up on running backs and wide receivers.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about a little bit more of an exciting matchup in Brian Hoyer and Johnny Football, your favorite. So Hoyer was impressing at the beginning, but now Manziel has definitely shown, a little bit more starting capability. So what do you guys think? I mean, certain players even on the team have said that they have some faith in Johnny Manziel. So thoughts on the likelihood of him starting or whether or not we'll see him at any point during the season?
Yeah, I was very impressed. I actually watched all his the first round snaps he took in the game this weekend, and he did exactly what I thought he was going to do. What everybody said he couldn't do in the NFL, run the ball successfully and move the chains. He did that, and I had a feeling the entire time that he was going to translate into the NFL, and you finally saw it. Maybe it was against second-string players. That's fine. He still did it against NFL talent. And to me, I think he's going to win that starting quarterback job now. They brought in Rex Grossman, which is a sign to me that Hoyer's going to be maybe cut, traded, something. But I think Rex Grossman is going to be that backup in the Shanahan system, which he was in Washington. So I think Manziel is going to be the starting quarterback. And if he is, I love him as a backup quarterback in the 10th or 11th round, just to kind of keep on your bench, because to me, I think he has potential of, being a very good fantasy quarterback this year.
Using your theory, I think Johnny Football is good. It has more value in a league where you're drafting a rookie and have the option to keep him for the next year. Using your theory, Hoyer is going to be the week 1 starter, and I would put almost my house on it. I think that it would be a huge dissatisfaction, disrespect to Hoyer not to give him the start after at least try him out after seeing what he did last year before he got hurt. And I maintain that. I think it almost doesn't matter how well Johnny Football plays. I think that Hoyer getting the week 2 start here in preseason is telling. I think if Patine really believed in Johnny Football, I think that he would be getting the week 2 start. Now, Steve and I have said ad nauseum that you can't take a ton from the preseason, especially with a situation like this. I think that it's going to take – Hoyer is going to get the week 1 start, but he's going to be on a short leash. The idea that they would cut him and bringing in a guy like Rex Grossman, I think, is more of an insurance situation. A lot of teams like to carry 3 quarterbacks. There are teams like New England that only like carrying 2. What are they going to do this year? They're carrying 3. They're not going to drop.
To be determined.
They're not right, but in my opinion, they're not going to cut any one of those guys, those 2 backups. So it's a similar situation in Cleveland where with Hoyer, in terms of fantasy, I like him as a borderline. Just because, and maybe I'm just higher on Hoyer, but I think if Gordon's there, I like him as a QB1 in 2 quarterback leagues. I think that if Gordon's not there, he takes a substantial hit in terms of fantasy. I think that everything rides on Josh Gordon being there, and I think that the whole offense will suffer if he's not.
Maybe that's what I should have went into. With Gordon there, I like whoever is starting, whether that be Hoyer, whether that be Manziel. I really like Manziel if Gordon's there.
Yeah.
But I like Hoyer, too, because I think Hoyer is actually a great quarterback. We saw him in New England all those years backing up Brady. If Gordon's not there, I don't want Hoyer. But I would be intrigued to take Manziel and having him on my bench.
I think that in terms of Hoyer, the idea, like I said, they're not going to cut him and keep Grossman, a guy that they just brought in who doesn't even know the system yet.
He was with Kyle Shanahan in Washington the past couple of years, and now he's the offensive coordinator over there. I don't know, just a couple light bulbs went off when I saw the signing.
Yeah. Well, moving into another New England backup, Matt Castle. So
they're all over the place.
Seems it. So leading up to the draft, so in Minnesota, we have Matt Castle and Teddy Bridgewater, who was definitely considered one of the more NFL-ready quarterbacks. So considering those 2 and that, information, what do you think? Do you think he even has a chance to beat out Matt Castle for the starting job?
The report I read today is that he doesn't have a shot. Castle is the week 1 starter, and most to all of the players in the locker room believe he will be the week 1 starter. In their first week preseason game, Bridgewater went 6 of 13 for 49 yards. Didn't move the ball well at all. In terms of Castle, there's a guy that, he's coming off an 1,800-yard, 11 touchdown, 9 interception in 9-game season with the Vikings last year when they tried to ride the Ponder train again.
I ponder that decision still.
Yeah. Castle can be Castle, yeah.
That was the first time she's heard it, so it definitely worked for her.
You're just recycling that joke. Castle can be a starter in 2 quarterback leagues to me. So I like him as a QB too, but I think only if Cordero Patterson can have a year. I think that he's going to be, like Jamie Eisenberg said on the show of CBS Sports, I think that he's going to be the main target, just in the fact that they don't have anybody else except for AP. But in terms of wide receivers, I mean, you're going to give a ball to is 55-year-old Greg Jennings going to be your number 1 wide receiver? No, I don't think so. So I just think that I think Patterson needs to have a year for Castle to be fantasy relevant. And I think that's what it comes down to.
I actually like the Minnesota Vikings offense. Is that it just sounds gross saying it. Just like I like their offense.
Well,
like,
they have good. They have guys with pretty high upside.
I obviously you have Adrian Peterson there. They bring in Norv Turner this year, who I think could be a big difference maker in that offense, not only for Castle or Bridgewater, but for the tight end Kyle Rudolph, who's kind of been on that verge of a starter. If your tight end gets hurt, I'm going to pick up Kyle Rudolph for a couple weeks. I think I like Rudolph as a top 10 tight end this year, and the Norv Turner, Antonio Gates, Jordan Cameron. Look what happened when Norv Turner was there with those guys. I'm that bold prediction from Steve, but I like Greg Jennings, and I do like Cordell Patterson. And I saw on a tweet, if you take Greg Jennings' stats with Castle last year and put him in a 16-game schedule, he would have been over 1,000 yards with 8 touchdowns, which I had no idea. I didn't see it until tonight, so I'm kind of, maybe I do like Matt Castle in Minnesota. I like Bridgewater. Obviously, I just think he's a more talented quarterback than Matt Castle. I think he stretches the offense a little bit better than Castle. But Castle will keep you in games and will win games.
I think in terms of a guy like Castle, fantasy relevance, you talked about that stat stretching it out over 16 games. That's a tough stat. I try not to use that a ton, but I understand the theory behind it. I just don't think Greg Jennings is 1,000-yard, 8-touchdown.
I don't either.
So that's a little bit of an anomaly to me. I think that's a little different.
Do you think that's on him or more on Castle in his gameplay?
I think it's a little of both. I think that Castle is a guy that, like you said, he's going to keep you in games, and I think that where the division they play in with the Packers, with the Lions, they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. Those are teams with not great defenses, but great offenses, and I think that they're going to have to keep up, and that's going to require Castle to throw the ball a lot. You touched on a guy like Kyle Rudolph, who I was going to get to, took the words right out of my mouth. Could be a top 10 guy, has that potential, but at the same time, I just think the hype train on him's a little too crazy. I just think that without a steady guy to pass him the ball, because if you think about it, think about the quarterbacks and tight ends, the really good tight ends in the league, and think about the quarterbacks that are throwing them the ball. The only other team I can think of where you look at a quarterback tight end situation and you say, without fail, that this tight end you think is going to be a good tight end is wherever Gary Kubiak goes, because he would, Schaub, he would put it into his head to throw to the tight end.
He'd play action tight end. It was.
So that's why we're so high on Dennis Pitta this year. And I don't even think Joe Flacco's a good fantasy quarterback, but I just think that he's going to be looking for Pitta, because Pitta is the tight end is the security blanket in the Gary Kubiak offense.
It was already his, security blanket before Kubiak was in his offense. So
I guess I can't think of another situation. That's a unique situation. So when you look at a tight end, you look at the pass, the thrower, that's the guy that's throwing him the ball, essentially. And I just don't believe that in that offense with that quarterback. I believe it in the offense. I don't believe it with the quarterback.
Could you say Miami maybe with Tannehill and Clay?
I mean, that's
is that kind of the same thing you're getting at?
Yeah, well, I think that Miami situation is also a little unique, just in the sense that Bill Lazor is there now, and he was the Philadelphia offensive coordinator or quarterbacks coach. But they want to run a Philadelphia-style offense, and that's going to require hiking the ball with 25 seconds left on the play clock, and that's going to open things up for an athletic tight end like Charles Clay for sure.
Cool. Well, we talked a little bit earlier about.
It is cool.
It's very cool.
It's fascinating.
Very cool.
Don't just say cool and then slide onto it. Say that was awesome and then proceed to the next one.
Nick, you won that argument again.
That was a synonym for whatever.
Right.
Okay.
So, RG3 and Kirk Cousins. This is exciting. Do we think there's any chance that in a Jay Gruden offense that we see Kirk Cousins. I mean, there was some chatter when the Patriots and the Redskins were in camp that Cousins was out playing RG3. Any, thoughts as to whether that could even be a possibility and whether it's relevant?
I'd like to say something. As we see the background of the Redskins beating the Patriots right now, Kirk Cousins is he's a great quarterback.
Great quarterback.
Great quarterback.
You think he's a great quarterback?
I think he's a great quarterback.
Okay.
I think he could be a franchise quarterback on many teams. He's not going to play in Washington. It's just not going to happen. And again, I will say it. He is a franchise quarterback somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But everybody bought RG3 jerseys. He's the face of their franchise.
Absolutely.
He was the face until he tore.
Right.
So it's not going to be in Washington. So to me, unless RG3 gets injured again, he just has no fantasy relevance to me. And I feel bad for the guy because they drafted him the same year as RG3, but they traded all those picks and they gave him the key to the city. And Cousins just isn't. He's not going to get in unless an injury.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I second that. I think Dan Snyder invested too much in RG3 to just let the coach just sit him for no matter how bad he does. I think barring an injury, I think RG3 is the guy. And like I said, it doesn't really matter to me how bad he performs. They didn't get decent offers for Cousins in a trade. That's why they didn't move him.
Yep.
I think the hype train on Kirk Cousins, and not to use that hype train, a lot, but I think the hype train on Kirk Cousins is a little out of control. I think that if a team really valued him enough that they would have traded for him, like the Ryan Mallett situation. I don't think either one right now is a starting quarterback in the league, maybe for Oakland, but I think that if I went out and tried out for Oakland, I might have a shot at it. So,
well, you were the flag football MVP.
That was wide receiving, so yeah. Randy Moss, 07.
We said 09.
You said 09.
It was the 09.
I said
Randy
07.
Moss.
I was setting records, pal. RG3 should have the best year of his career with these weapons.
Really should.
Deshaun Jackson, Garcon Reed. So Alfred Morris, I saw something on Morris, just a quick hit. They want him to catch 25 balls.
Would that be 25 more than his career?
Yeah, I mean, Halou is there to catch balls.
Yeah.
So that's not going to be Morris's game. But I just think they have a lot of guys who can make plays in that offense. So I think RG3 is primed to have a great year. But if you do draft RG3, I would advise definitely grabbing a backup like a Tony Romo, which is what Greg
you go like 8, like RG3 in the 8th, maybe grab someone in the 9th or 10th back-to-back as a quarterback.
I mean, you could. Greg in a 10-team league got Romo in the 13th. Or in the 12th. So I think that you can do that. I mean, you can wait a couple of rounds. Jay Cutler will be there. I like Jay Cutler there too. So I think that depending on where you draft RG3 determines a lot in terms of where quarterbacks in general are going, Steve. If RG3 is falling to the 8th round like he did in the Greg Berman's draft, I think that you can wait. But if you're getting RG3 in the 5th and you're reaching for him, maybe quarterbacks are going a little higher than you think.
Probably runs. Those quarterbacks are going to start going. Everybody who needs a quarterback is going to jump and take one.
Right.
Well, you mentioned Oakland earlier, who now has the luxury of choosing between Matt Schaub and Derek Carr.
Don't sleep on Derek Carr.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us what you think. I don't know if the most exciting thing that's their practice this week. So
Derek Carr is going to be great.
Like you say that, like me saying Kirk Cousins is like him being great is just like timeout. Like stop the press. Like this guy, like Kirk Cousins is like a legit quarterback. I mean, he's done well.
Right. I mean, Hoyer's going to get released.
Go on with your Derek Carr thing right now.
Right. At some point, Hoyer's going to get dropped this camp. So, in terms of these two guys, Schaub's going to get the start. I don't think that that's really a debate right now. Carr hasn't really been turning heads in camp, and they traded for Schaub, so they obviously have something invested in him. This isn't a Matt Flynn in Seattle situation where Russell Wilson in camp his rookie year is just turning heads. It's not that type of situation. I think it's more of this is a certainty. Schaub is he's more of a game manager. He's a veteran in the league. If you're going for wins, and Schaub gives you the best chance, I guess. The first preseason game, Schaub's first throw should have been intercepted. This is an idea of what you're going to get for the season.
That is Matt Schaub in a nutshell.
That is absolutely, and it doesn't in terms of Schaub, you're going to get more of the 2013 Schaub. So,
Man, everybody wants that on their team.
Schaub in 2009, it was his best year. 4,700 yards, 29 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. A lot of, the interception total was a little high. That was in 16 games. 2012, 4,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 12 picks in 16 games. So 2014 Schaub to me is going to be more 2012 Schaub than 09 Schaub. He's going to throw, he's going to more interceptions, but as many or slightly less yards. They're going to be playing catch up a lot, so I could see more than 4,000 yards. But I just think just because they're in games, they could be handing the ball off to either MJD or DMC, which bold prediction, will both go down with an injury at some point. I think we're going to see Latavius Murray.
You are living life on the edge.
Yes.
I'm in regards to this, I'll be quick. I am not looking at either of these quarterbacks.
At any point.
If your quarterback goes down, if your backup quarterback goes down, and if every other quarterback on the free agent
You'd probably get
list,
Kirk Cousins, wouldn't you?
I would take the risk of Kirk Cousins going in, RG3 getting injured during that week than one of these quarterbacks, I would say.
If that's the case, he's losing a lot of leagues because you need to start.
I'll sacrifice that week.
You need to start. And the reason why he feels that way is because that was my headline. I
don't think Schaub is a serviceable quarterback in the NFL anymore, and I don't think Derek Carr is a serviceable quarterback as of now.
If Schaub gives you over 4,000 yards, down on the touchdowns, or up on the touchdowns.
If Schaub gives us 4,000 yards, I will be the cover model for Dirty Water News or Dirty Water TV that month.
I don't know if they'd have it, but I think if I had any confidence in Schaub whatsoever, I would throw a tab bet on it, but I don't. So.
Do you think you're being a little rough on him after just one really, really bad year last year?
No,
I mean,
he's
There's a fall off with every quarterback at some point in their career. Some of them come faster than others. You see the rate at which Tom Brady's been great with the weapons he's had.
Right.
Schaub has arguably had better weapons in Houston.
His weapons have gotten better every year, and
his
production has gone down.
Okay. All right. Well, good insight,
was
guys.
That cool?
That was. I mean, it was.
Was it rad?
It was radical.
Radical. That's right. That's what we do on this show. We do radical.
All right. Well, now that we have your insight on quarterbacks, let's go a little bit even further around the league, and we've got some fan questions, which is very exciting. Good for you. So
it's like, hey, Nick, you got some fan questions.
Good for you, man.
Hey, good job.
Good for you.
Good job.
Nice work. Popular. All right.
Which means we have fans, I guess. I mean, that's a good thing to say.
That is exciting
good
news.
for you.
I mean, listener questions, but okay.
We got two.
Viewer questions.
We got two fans.
That is exciting. I know. Well, actually, you have 5 because we have 5 questions. The first question.
You have 5 coworkers, I should say.
Okay, I have 5 friends. You have none. It's fine. So Lacey in Somerville asks, I'm 9th in the draft in my 12-team standard league. Do you recommend going for a running back or a quarterback at that point?
If you have to pick between the two of them, it's got to be running back. I think quarterback. In our 12-team league, did you say 12-team league this was or 10?
I did. I said 12.
12-team league, we were able to wait. It was PPR, but we were able to wait on Aaron Rodgers till the 3rd. So, I mean, if it seems as though Lacey, is it?
Lacey.
It seems as though she's sold on the idea of taking a quarterback. So if you are, then do it. But I think that wide receiver is really where you're going to want to go. I think Demaryius Thomas is going to be there, A.J. Green, Des Bryant. Other than Calvin Johnson, I think that those 3 guys are going to be there. And those 3 guys are better than any running back or, in my opinion, or quarterback that you could draft there. And that includes Peyton Manning. And I just think that quarterback's so deep as wide receiver is, but quarterback you need 2 of them.
Right.
So, and in a lot of cases, 3 with the flex. So I'd go wide receiver. I wouldn't even go either one of the quarterback or running back.
So, Lacey, this is what you're going to want to do. Why don't you take a seat with me right here?
Look into her eyes.
Lacey, the big mistake is, setting your draft pick like I'm either going running back or quarterback here. To me, that is a huge no-no. Like I am not setting any precedent with my pick, and I'm right around her thing in a lot of my leagues. First round, make a list of your top 9 guys. She's the 9th pick. Make a list of your top 9 guys as they get drafted. Clear them off the board, and then whoever's left there, your decision's made for you. It's nice and easy. I just don't like setting any boundaries in the first round. If I'm going running back or I'm going quarterback, I'm making a list of my top 9 guys and just taking whoever's there.
It's unlikely to me that a quarterback goes in between the 9th overall pick and then I think she gets the 2nd turnaround, it's unlikely to me in between those two picks a quarterback goes. So grab a wide receiver, because if you go Demarius, A.J. Green, Dez, one of those guys, if you go quarterback, those three guys will be off the board by the time it comes back around to you. Go wide receiver in the first, and then go quarterback in the second. But just know, Lacey, that you're going to be very thin at running back.
Yep.
All right, so we actually have a question from one of our Twitter followers in Greenville, North Carolina. This is JT asking, hypothetically, if Josh Gordon does get suspended for 8 games, when do you draft him?
We touched on it earlier, and your friend Greg took him in the 15th in a 10-team league. That's I might even take him a little bit higher in a 10-team league, because your bench is going to be so stacked that your last player on your bench, which would be Josh Gordon, doesn't really have to play that much, because you're going to have so many other good bench players in such a short league. Yeah. In a 12-team, I wrote down 11 in the 11th round, just because I would feel confident in my team that I can keep Josh Gordon until the playoffs, and I would just love to throw Gordon out there in the playoffs, just saying, hey, I drafted him. That's my good job by me. Yeah. Maybe a little later, 14, 16, you don't have the depth to draft him. Right. He might even be undraftable in 14 or 16s to me.
If he gets suspended 8 games, he doesn't last until the 11th. So there's going to be somebody in every draft. That's a huge Josh Gordon guy.
And it all depends if you're going to be the guy to go and get him or not.
Right.
And that comes down to you and your moxie towards Josh Gordon and when you're going to take him, I guess you could say.
7th and 8th round, I like it. If for 8-game suspension, you're still getting 8 games out of him. And I think those 8 games are going to be better than anybody else.
That's 8 games if you're going to the championship, though.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in theory. So let's say 8 games, you know what I mean? I think that you get 8 games out of him, or if you get 6 or 7, it's going to be better than what anybody you draft in the 8th round does all season long.
That's why I have no problem taking Josh Gordon in this year.
Good. All right, Scott from Burlington asked, who are your top 3 sleeper picks? Go.
Bishop Sankey. I like Bishop Sankey. I guess you could go Cordero Patterson. He's going to be a good sleeper. And based on that draft that we just talked about, Jordan Reed.
I mean, yeah, Jordan Reed in the 13 is just that is great value. If Jordan Reed's falling that low, I'm taking him every time. But my 3 sleepers, real quick. I mean, you're throwing out guys who are like that you like. You're high in like those mid rounds, like the 5th round or so. I got little guys that are going a little bit later. Joique Bell's going around the 8th round. I really like him as a 6th or 7th. I think he's a huge focal point in that Detroit offense. Terrence Williams, wide receiver out of Dallas, he's going around the 10th round. I would go even higher, 7th or 8th. I just love, was it Linehan?
Scott Linehan.
Scott Linehan coming from Detroit. I love that system for Dez, Romo, and Terrence Williams. I think he's going to benefit the most. And Harry Douglas, who we grabbed late in our draft in the Instagram League. I love him in the 14th, 15th, or 16th.
Eric Ebron as well. I'm really high on Ebron.
Okay, we probably have time for one more quick question, which is from Damien in Watertown. What defenses are most likely to provide high scoring?
This is actually a really good question. If you're a friend of the podcast show, you know where I think I love pass rushing defenses, which is why I like the Rams. If you can get to the quarterback, you're going to cause errant throws, and you're going to get interceptions, which will lead to pick sixes. It's very hard to determine who's going to get pick sixes in the year, but if you can get to the quarterback, you're going to cause interceptions. That's your best chance to get pick sixes. Rams, Patriots, Denver, Chiefs. Who else do I have written down?
San Fran. I mean, those are the defenses that are going. I think you're looking at Cincinnati, Arizona too. Is going to be in that conversation.
I wrote a sleeper down: Jacksonville Jaguars.
That's awful.
Gus Bradley bringing the Seattle of the South out in Jacksonville. They looked great last night against Chicago. That's my sleeper defensive pick for this year. Mark it down.
Bold prediction. Good job. All right, guys, that about wraps it up.
I guess
your look is just like, did he really just say Jacksonville?
I guess that about wraps it up.
Nick's in shock.
That's right.
All right, so that is it for us on episode 15 of the Dirty Water News Fantasy Football Show. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Nick Lessigore, at Uncle Stav, and at Caitlin Jean. On August 23rd, CBS Scene, Jamie Eisenberg and Dave Richard from CBS are going to be hosting a fantasy draft party. You guys are going to be there?
Yeah, we will be there.
Awesome.
10 a.m. prizes, raffles. They're going to be giving out fantasy advice. They're going to be doing a draft too, live draft. It's going to be a good time.
Can't wait.
Good. Sounds good. Well, it should be fun.
And
Thank you.
Oh, God.
No, please go.
No.
Instagram at DWN Fantasy
Yes.
Football Show.
I just want to hear Caitlin talk more. Go ahead.
I know.
The floor is yours.
A lovely voice. It's been a pleasure being with you all this evening.
Adios.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.